Good evening to all the participants. We are waiting for a few more participants to join in before we start. Kindly wait for a minute or two. Good evening to all the participants. Welcome to the eighth day of the NDRF's online internship program. Today, we have two topics of half an hour each. One is on an introduction to law and industrial property rights, and the second topic will be Industry 4.0 and 5.0. So I will be starting. Starting in a couple of minutes on the intellectual property rights. Please hold on. We are just waiting for a few more participants to join in. So, good evening and welcome everybody. So, this is the topic for today. The first half of today's session is on introduction to law and intellectual property rights. So, uh, so today's talk, I'm going to cover it in three parts. One will be certain practical aspects of law, which is useful to engineers in their day-to-day life. It is also for in terms of general knowledge. Apart from that, there will be some portion to cover business law, which should be useful for those of you who want to, have their own startups, those who are entrepreneurial type. Then the third aspect is on intellectual property law, how to benefit from the industrial intellectual property, and how to safeguard your IP rights. So basically, what is law? Law is nothing but the rules or conduct which is established by an authority which is able to enforce its will. Law is also defined by a famous author called Austin. What he says is law is the command of the sovereign, which is backed by force. See, law is what we encounter on a day-to-day life. We have been encountering right from the time of our birth. The moment you are born, you have to apply for your birth certificate. The hospital in which you are born would have been established under a law. The doctors are governed by certain rules and regulations under the medical related laws. When the house in which we live in is also registered under the Registration Act. It is a kind of a property which is immobile property, and we also have uh, the car or the two wheeler which we travel, that is also registered under under the Motor Vehicles Act. So law is something which we encounter on a day-to-day basis, and at the same time, why do we behave ourselves when we drive? Why do we drive on the left side of the road? Why don't we break the rules? Because we are also afraid that there will be repercussions for that. That is, the police will catch us. We have to have the vehicle insured. So all this conduct is governed by law in different forms. So that is, there is a force which will prevent us from acting outside it. There will be penal consequences to violating the law. So what are the requirements for a law to be accepted? See, and most of what we experience in law is commonsensical. If we really think about it, we'll automatically find it very obvious. Okay, so laws should be general. They should be promulgated such that citizens must know the standards to which they are being held. There is a famous saying that uh, ignorance of law is not an excuse. So everybody, when they must know the law, and if you drive your vehicle on the wrong side of the road, or park on a no parking zone, and tell the traffic cop that, hey, I didn't know these rules, he will not accept that. So that is a well established principle of law, that ignorance of law is not an excuse. Then there is no retroactive rule making. That is, if a law is in existence today, you have to abide by that, and no law or court can make you abide by a law which will come up later. Then laws should be understandable, laws should not be contradictory of those affected, and there must be a consistency in law throughout time. And there should be a congruence between laws as announced and as it is applied. So how do we find the appropriate law? Basically, how did law originate? See, the in India, the Indian legal system has followed the British legal system, which is also known as the common law approach. The roots of the law which we follow starts from the customs. When we say customs, we talk about the traditions that has been followed over the years. Then there are certain rules to that. That is, customs should be of immemorial antiquity. It should not be against what is the present norms followed by the society. So customs is a source of law. Then the constitutional law is another basis for our law. the Constitution of India is the fountainhead for the legal system in India. And as they say, nobody is above the law. The Constitution you would have learnt in your civics, or in your democratic politics or political science, uh, right from your eighth standard or so. And the Constitution defines how the government functions, the various parts of the government, the executive, the judiciary, the legislature. So that is an important source of law. Then legislation is another important, very important source of law, which we all know. All the acts are enacted by the legislature. Then there is what is called as delegated legislation. These delegated legislation are the rules and regulations that are formed by the executive, that is the executive part of the government, when vertical by rules under the legislation. So the rules, bylaws which are formed, for example, under the Motor Vehicles Act, you have the rules. Every state can form its own rules to a certain extent, which is under the Motor Vehicles Act. So that is called as delegated legislation. Then, when the legislative authority, like the parliament, is not in session, ordinances are passed by the executive, uh, of course, by the ratification of the president. So, and these ordinances are all is also law. However, it is time bound. That is when the next legislative session happens. It has to be cleared by the legislature, or else it will lapse. Then another important aspect in the Indian form of the Indian legal system is that the judicial decisions and precedents by the constitutional courts, that is Supreme Court and the High Courts, are binding, and they have the force of law. The hierarchy in which it is followed is that the judicial decisions of the Supreme Court has to be followed by the High Court and lower courts. The judicial decisions of the High Courts will have to be followed by the lower courts. Then another part of law is the contract law. Contract is nothing but an agreement which is entered by two or more people, two or more parties. We will be covering that subsequently. And the as far as the two parties go, they are bound by the rules and regulations which they have set up within the contract, within the agreement. Then international law is another important source of law. In fact, many of the topics which we are going to cover today have their source in international law, like the intellectual property rights, the environmental law. These are all the agreements and treaties that have been entered into by various nations, especially as part of the United Nations. And they have all accepted that these things, these aspects will be incorporated into their respective legal system. So based on these, the various legislations are enacted. Now, what is the classification of law? The traditional classification, which is very visible to all of us, is the distinction between civil law and criminal law. See, in civil law, we the Supreme Court and High Courts have both civil and criminal jurisdiction, but below them we have the different types of courts, which are the civil courts and the criminal courts. In the criminal courts have the sessions courts and the magistrates. The civil court have the civil judges of the first class and second class and so on. And the approach of the various courts is also very different between the civil law and criminal law. We will be covering that in a little more detail subsequently. But what is important is that in criminal law is all about punishing a person if they are found guilty. So these the punishments are like either a jail term or a fine and things like that, that involves taking away certain rights of the individual. So the proof that is required by the court is much higher. It's much higher than civil law, where where the standards of proof, as they say, is a little more lesser than what is there in criminal law. So the and civil law is all about restitution of rights. It's about preventing people from interfering in certain acts and things like that. It is about damages. It is about basically bringing back the what is lost, or what you call righting a wrong that is committed. So that is in terms of civil law and criminal law. Another aspect of the how laws are classified is between substantiative law and procedural law. Substantiative law is basically most of the laws which we see are substantiative laws. Uh, you it is what defines the rights of an individual and the punishment in case of a legal wrong. Procedural laws are mostly used by the legal system to follow certain rules and regulations in filing of cases, in the way evidence is given, and and certain other aspects, so that everybody knows the procedures to be followed. Then the final classification is about the public law and private law. uh, uh, public law is basically what what generally most of the people have to follow. This is like uh, the uh, the Indian Penal Code and things like that. That is very standard throughout. But the private law, or which are private to the individual, for example, the personal laws, that is the marriage laws, the about adoption and things like that, those all come under the private law. So about the constitution, I think this is well covered. It is part of most of what we have learned in our 8th standard, ninth standard, 10th standard. So we know it is supreme law of the land. Indian constitution is the longest written constitution with a federal structure. We have a parliamentary form of government. We have a preamble which defines us to be a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And what is very important is that we are fortunate that we have certain fundamental rights which cannot be taken away even by the government, unless there's a procedure in which it can be done so. So there is what is called as the rule of law. Then we have the directive principles of state policy. We have the fundamental duties which all citizens must follow. We have an independent judiciary, and we follow adult suffrage. That is, all citizens above the age of 18 have the right to vote. So the what is different from what we learned on the constitution is certain other laws, such as what is called as a tort. Tort is defined here as the tortious liability arises when the breach of duty primarily fixed by law, and such duty towards persons generally, and its breach is redressable by an action for unliquidated damages, as defined by Winfield. So, what is tort? For example, if somebody is traveling on the road and that person unfortunately meets with an accident. See, the accident is something which you don't know the other party. It is something new. There was no contract or no understanding before. So what happens in such cases is that the what do you call they will have to compensate the accident victim in some form. So these come under the classification called tort, which is a word for tortum or twisted. It is a French word. So essentially, in a tort, there is either an act or an omission of an act, and there is a legal damage which is encountered, which has to be redressed. So there are various aspects to it, like the fault-based liability, vicarious liability. That is, the fault of the servant is also redressable by the master. That is called as vicarious liability. Then that is due to negligence. There's a concept of strict liability and absolute liability. The For example, in case of absolute liability, is when we had the unfortunate Bhopal gas tragedy, the company was liable to compensate for all the gas victims. So that was the concept of absolute liability. Now, coming to the criminal law, what is different between uh, a tort and a criminal law is the mental element. That is, whether the person did it intentionally or not. If it is unintentional, it comes under tort. If it is with an intention, it comes under crime. So basically, tort is a private wrong, whereas crime is a public wrong, or law is a wrong against the society at large. So there is a large, what you call, larger cause to the public wrong. That is why all criminal cases are actually filed by the state against an individual who has done a wrong. In India, a private person normally cannot take action against crimes such as murder. So it is the police who file the case and carry out the investigation, and which results in the trial in the criminal court. And so the two aspects of crime is there is a mental element, that is the planning and things like that, which happens in the mind. Then the act, which is called as the actus reus, the act of doing the wrong. So if both these ingredients are there, that constitutes a crime. And since the punishment in crime removes the fundamental rights of an individual, the standard of proof is much higher. So that is what we call as beyond reasonable doubt. And these days crimes are also going on to the computer networks, which are also called as cyber crimes. So these crimes are also come under the criminal law, like spoofing, cyber stalking, and so many other aspects to it. So, coming to the contract law, which we encountered a little earlier, what is contract? It is nothing but there is an offer by one party and acceptance by another party. These two forms the contract. Then there is the promiser promises to do an act or not do an act, and in exchange for what is called as consideration, that is, there is money or a financial aspect to it. And when these two things are there, it forms what is called as an agreement. And an agreement, if it is enforceable by law, by enforceability we mean that it is legal. It is not illegal or not against public policy. If these two, if an agreement is enforceable by law, it becomes a contract. Now there are many aspects to contract. That is, the parties involved, it can be two or more parties. They should have the capacity to contract. That is, they should be major. That means the minors below 18 years cannot contract. They should be of sound mind, uh, and such kind of important aspects are there in contract. Then therefore you have different types of contracts, which is basically you have valid contracts which are legally valid. Then there are void agreements, which, for example, an agreement to kill somebody would be maybe an agreement, but it is not valid, so it is not a contract. Then there are voidable contracts, if due to certain things, like if a contract was signed under duress, under force, that would be voidable. That is, the person entering into a contract can avoid the contract. Then, of course, there are illegal contracts, which are illegal by based on the it is violative of the laws of the land. Now, now there are the aspects of business law which I am sure are very essential for all our engineering students, which I'm sure many of you uh, would want to start to what you call have a startup or enter into business. So that's why I would urge you all to concentrate a little more on this slide. So in business law, the basically you have what is called as a proprietorship. An individual carrying out any business or carrying out any activity is termed as a proprietor of the business. So this is nothing but the individual is the proprietorship, and the proprietorship is the individual. Now, if you have more than one person, you can have what is called as a partnership. A partnership is entered into by in the form by having a partnership agreement, and the agreement is can be registered. If it is registered, it is before the registrar of firms. It is partnership is just what they call like the proprietorship, but the different partners have an what do you call have a different share depending on how much they invest. There is one more way of entering into a sort of a partnership which is more corporate in structure. That comes under the company law. It like forming a company under the Companies Act. So under this, just like the partnership agreement, the members of the company enter into two agreements, which one is the memorandum of association and the other is articles of association. These are this is the agreement by which they agree that they will be bound by, and these agreements, along with the name, is registered with the registrar of companies. What is very interesting is that the company is separate from the owner. That is, the company is treated as a separate entity, and the for example, the PAN card of the company is different from that of the owners. Whereas in a partnership, the owners have to file their own tax returns. That is, so the taxation aspect is different when it is a proprietorship, partnership, or under the Companies Act. And there are many reasons why people prefer registering under the Companies Act, because it gives what you call a corporate flavor to the company. The when people have startups, they the company is formed by the distribution of shares amongst the various members of the company. So, for example, if the company has 100 shares, they have a startup, and so you have an investor. The investor might say that, okay, you give me 20% of your shareholding. So it becomes a little more easier for people to invest in a company, and the rules and regulations that the people must follow under the company is much more stringent than in a partnership or proprietorship. So there are advantages and disadvantages in forming of a company. Then there is the industrial law, which is applicable to all businesses. There are the Minimum Wages Act, the Workmen's Compensation Act. There is so many other acts which are meant in an industrial situation that people must follow when they have these huge manufacturing units. So now I'll introduce you briefly to the property law. Uh, See, the property law is nothing but the right of ownership, which is the right against everybody else in the world. So there are interests of the owners, and there are what is called as easementary rights. Easementary rights is something like if a property is landlocked, and what you call the there is a pathway on which the people using that land follow, which is going on somebody else's land. They have a right to reach the road using the others land. So that is called as land, easementary rights. So there are different modes of ownership. You have absolute ownership, you have joint holding, that is multiple owners of a land, you have conditional ownership, and you have future ownership. I will not go too much into these details because we are already a little behind schedule. So, what is important part of the property law is its classification. You know, immobile property is like land, building. It is basically land, benefits arising out of land, and things attached to the land. And it is different from mobile property. For example, your house is an immobile property, your vehicle is a mobile property. Then when you say things attached to the earth, is like trees are considered as immobile property, but crops which are meant for cutting and selling is considered as mobile property. So another aspect of property which is very important these days is the intellectual property. Intellectual property is doesn't come under the immobile or mobile category. It is a totally different aspect in itself, because it has got a lot of value attached to it because of the human creativity. So we will go a little more into the intellectual property. It is intangible and abstract. That is why it doesn't come under the traditional concepts of the property. They can be assigned or bequeathed. We will come a little more into that in the subsequent slides. It may be embodied in certain real property. That means that, for example, in case of a copyright, the if the book is printed, so the book is a real property. That is, it is an mobile property, and holding the intellectual property, which is the copyright of the author. The intellectual property is basically time limited, and the protection is granted to the owners of the intellectual property against infringement of their rights. Now, why is it limited? It is because intellectual property is nothing but the property due to the creativity of the individual, and this creativity comes because of the knowledge of the society. So when that individual approaches the court saying that my rights have been violated, the see, one of the arguments against intellectual property is that they have acquired knowledge from the society, and they are sharing it with the society. But how do you at the same time ensure that creativity is maintained? That is, new inventions take place, new books are written, and all these aspects. So there is a via media that has been established by law and by the various enactments, saying that okay, we will give a 20-year limitation in case of inventions, 60 years in case of copyrights, and things like that. So there is a time limitation attached to intellectual property, which is again different from the mobile property or immobile property. So there is an international regime behind intellectual property. It all had an origin from the Industrial Revolution, when when people considered their inventions to be industrial property, and they wanted it to be protected. So it started with the Paris Convention for Protection of Industrial Property in 1883, and due to the invention of the printing press, and basically the reproduction machinery. So you had the Berne Convention for the protection of literary and artistic works, and many enactments have also taken place based on international conventions. We had the TRIPS, which is the trade related aspect of intellectual properties. We have the World Trade Organization that has been set up, and we have the World Intellectual Property Organization, all looking after these aspects. So one of the most known parts is the patents. Yeah, patents is nothing but a monopoly right given to an inventor to use his invention, so that it can reward him. It can prevent others from stealing the invention of stealing the inventions based on others' hard work, and it encourages greater investments by guaranteeing protection. Now, there are certain criteria or ingredients to define what is an invention. Everything cannot be invented. So, for example, a discovery that is a thing which is already there cannot you cannot be granted patent for that. So, what are the different aspects? What that it should be novel. It must be new. That is, it should not be anticipated by anyone at any time. There must be an inventive step. That is, it is not obvious. It should have industrial applicability, and it must not explicitly excluded by any statute governing them. So there are different ways in which a patent can be procured. Basically, in the patent office, the patent application has to be filed. The person who has filed for it has to request for examination, and once the examining authority examines the application, they go in for a publication. Then there is a detailed examination. Once the publication is done, you can have, before the patent is granted, anybody else objecting to that can oppose it. This opposition can also take place post grant of the patent, and then the patent gets registered, and it has to be renewed from time to time. Now we come to another important aspect of the intellectual property, which is about copyright. As I told you, it is due to the reproduction technologies like the printing press that the various authors wanted to protect themselves. So what is important is that, again, copyright cannot be granted to anything. It cannot be granted to an idea, but the expression of an idea can be copyrighted. So it is basically about the originality and creativity, which is the skill, labor, and judgment of the author, which is copyrighted. And for copyright to be granted, it should be expressed, it should be fixed in a material form. Now, different aspects can be copyrighted: literary works, dramatic works, musical works, artistic works, cinematographic films, and sound recordings can be copyrighted. Copyright exists automatically. It need not be registered. But if you register it, there are certain advantages. In India, the protection is for lifetime of the author plus 60 years for granting of copyright. Now, industrial designs is another intellectual property. It is the design of any aspect or of shape or configuration applied to the whole or part of an article. Now, the features of the shape, the configuration, pattern, composition, lines, colors, all these form part of the industrial design. And the other important aspects is that it has to be applied, and it is to an article. It is basically applied to what to the appeal part of it, and it should be judged to the what you call solely by the eye. It is basically a modified copyright. So we have the trademarks, which is what we see being used in advertisements everywhere. So its basic function is to protect against competition and to guarantee the quality to the public. It is basically any sign which is capable of being represented graphically, and it should be distinguishable from the competitors. That is what is a trademark. So we have again registered and unregistered trademarks. Registration of trademarks has its benefits, and the .com and the domain names are also covered under the Trademark Act. We have the other forms of intellectual properties, which are geographical indications. For example, Tirupati Laddu. Then you have the Mysore silk. These are all various forms of geographical indications which are uh, protected under the various acts. Then you have protection of plant varieties and farmers' rights. You have confidential information, that is the trade secrets, like the secret formulation of Coca-Cola is comes under this confidential information. Then semiconductor IC layout design is also protected under as a as one of the intellectual property rights. So, what is important in this is the last few slides. What is important is how do one monetize their intellectual properties. There are different ways. If you retain the ownership and give a licensing right for a certain company in certain area, it's called as a license. The person can use that license for the specific period. However, if you say that I will divest my right fully, it is called as assignment, and the you totally sell your ownership of the right by way of assignment. And then transmission of intellectual property is after the death of the owner. It can be bequeathed. It can be given away to the successors by way of transmission. So now, if there is a violation of intellectual property, what do we do? So you can approach the court and request for an injunction. Injunction either whatever does not allow it injuncts the defendant from doing an act, and or either temporarily or permanently. So an injunctive relief is a very important tool for as a remedy for the intellectual property right holder. So there are injunction can be granted only based on certain criteria. Of course, the court has to look at it based on if it is a prima facie case, there is a irreparable loss to the right holder, and based on the balance of convenience. Now, once uh, the right holder shows that he has damages, then the court can compensate for the actual loss, or it can also give punitive damages, that is in the form of punishment. So by then accounts for profits, that is the profit that was earned illegally, will have to be paid to the right holder, and the costs of the litigation costs, court costs, legal fees has to be again paid. So these are all what the court looks into while granting remedies. So anyway, since we are already at 5:45, I request that the questions can be typed, and while the next speaker gives his talk, I will answer some of the questions which are raised here. So we'll take a minute's break and then come back. We'll be giving I'll be giving introduction to the next speaker. So I'll see you in a minute's time. So the next topic of today is Industry 4.0 and 5.0, and it will be given by Shri Anbucherian, who's General Manager of Caterpillar. So Sri Anbucherian is involved in integrated quality management at Caterpillar Inc. He is also the process excellence manager following Six Sigma, CPS, EHS, and LCP at Caterpillar. He is the head of manufacturing engineering quality assurance also. So he has the master of business administration, and his skills include Six Sigma, quality management, lean manufacturing, 5S, process excellence, FMEA, process improvement, quality assurance, strategic planning, etc. So I request him to give his talk on Industry 4.0 and 5.0. Sir.
Thanks, Vijay, and thanks, team. Hope that everyone is able to hear my voice as well as see my screen. Just to confirm, I can proceed. Vijay, are you able to see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity and interacting with the people. And my presentation is focusing on the Industrial Revolution. And most of you may be familiar with the Industrial Revolution, what we are talking about. And just want to touch upon the practical aspect, what is happening in the industry, since I spent more than 3 decades in the industry, and I can talk about that. That's what my topic. We will be covering Industry 4.0 and 5.0. Since I came to know that most of them are the college student or institutional people, I touch upon something what we can do on the industry or institution side. So first I will cover upon the Industry 4.0. So as you know that the Industrial Revolution started with the Industry 1.0. It is just started with the mechanization and the introduction of the steam and water power. Before that, it was just manpower what utilized. What is possible by man has been mechanized in the Industry 1.0 in 17th century, 1700 years. And Industry 2.0 is created a mass production assembly line using electrical power. The steam and water power gone away from the industry, and then electrical power came into picture. On the Industry 3.0, automated production systems and computers, IT systems, and robotics little bit, all those things came into picture. In the Industry 4.0, what we are going to detailedly understand is the smart factory, autonomous systems, and IoT and machine learning. So if you consider the Industry 4.0, what is the elements of Industry 4.0 is 9 different elements. It starts with the augmented reality, system integration, cloud computing, big data, IoT, 3D printing, cyber security, autonomous robots, simulation. So we are going to discuss each and every element of Industry 4.0 in detail at the high level, not on the classroom session type of things. We just have the understanding and application. So if you consider the augmented reality, it is nothing but a system that creates combination of real and virtual worlds, real-time interaction, and accurate 3D registration of virtual and real projects. So where this application is getting utilized or benefited to the industry's product development, when we can't make a product developed at the beginning itself or any design improvement required, we can use this augmented reality to see the challenges in the manufacturability and see the challenges in the safety, everything. Also, similarly, for the process development, we can use the augmented reality. For example, if I want to construct a factory, before putting everything, all the pieces together, I can simulate and see whether my interactions with the machine and equipment, everything is perfect or not. So like that, we can do something on that. And also urban design and planning, whenever the government or the private sector planning for the construction or the urban development, we can use that. And also we can use it for a more effective way of training. If you see the complex manufacturing conditions like a boiler manufacturing or a big mining machine manufacturing, the training the people on the actual site may be a challenge. So we can use the augmented reality for training the people. So just see the picture. What we are trying to do is more than 100-ton weight truck, mining truck has been tilted and seeing the parts. Something like that is possible just by rotating the object with the augmented reality. So it is having a end-to-end application from product development, process development, urban design, and planning and training. So the next element of this industry 4.0 is system integration. Enterprise application integration and data integration, electronic document integration, and interchange, what we are talking about. After globalization of our industries in early 90s, so it became a big challenge. If you see a small town in India can get connected with the US industry. For example, a small manufacturer in a remote village can connect his process flow or the delivery or the product inspection with his customer who is sitting in Texas or Atlanta. So that's what enterprise application integration, what we are talking about. So to become globally competitive suppliers, all our Indian supply base should have the capability of getting integrated with the customer systems what they already have. So it will become a paperless office as well as it will become a real-time data. So it starts with the customer relationship management and database and legacy systems, enterprise resource planning, internal application, and business processes. So without having this connectivity across the globe, we can't do the business globally. That's what the biggest parameter which decides whether I want to become a global supplier for the big companies across the globe. Not only the companies outside India, even companies who grown within India also expecting the same thing. So then it become a biggest challenge, and there are a lot of solutions available on the system integration. We just you have to connect the systems with the appropriate security, and then we can have a real-time interaction with all the customers. So the next one is a global cloud computing. So cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage and computing power without direct active management by the user. The term is centrally used to describe the data centers available to many users over the internet. If you see the computer revolution of the computer, the first computer had a big room size hardware systems, everything. Now we hold the computer in our palm, in our hands. Then where the data storage will happen? So each and every organization or the institution start storing the data means it will become a duplication. It will become a entire global waste. So that's why the cloud computing came into picture. So it is helping a lot of things like a low cost mobile application and digital data warehouse. So it is nothing but getting a storage space like our physical warehouses in a cloud. So a lot of cloud service providers are available in the market across the globe. And if you have a mobile app developed, you can hire the space in that cloud and then you can store that. I'll give the simple example what I am talking about the low cost mobile application. Most of you understand the industry situation where I have to maintain the calibration status or checking methods all those things for the measuring instrument what we use in the shop floor. It can be a vernier caliper or micrometer or digital pressure gauge or the whatever the things. To maintain the records of that all the measuring instruments, I no need to do anything. I have to just use a mobile app. So there are a lot of cloud computing service providers available. For example, the cost of that mobile application is nothing but just 5,000 rupees, an annual subscription. You can hold more than 50,000 instruments data completely at any point of time. We can retrieve from that. So that type of most efficient way of computing is available across the globe. And digital data warehouse, so no one wants to do it in a very luxurious way or very costly way. So that's why the cloud computing become a big success in the market. So just we have to get it, hire the space and utilize it when required. That's how it works on the cloud computing. So big data analytics is becoming a biggest field what is getting popular in the institution as well as the industry. So it is nothing but human intelligence getting outsourced with a database. That's what it works on that. Uh, when we computerized everything, when we digitalized everything, all the data has some information. All the information is helping us to make a decision. So that's how it works. So the data is a number. The information is the details what we arrive from the numbers, and we can use that for the decision making. So the real time decision making is the one of the critical things for any business across the globe. So to make it a real time decision in a more fast way, we can use the big data analytics. So basically what we are talking about is human intelligence is getting outsourced with a database what others people are doing that. So this is called big data analytics. So next one is on the Internet of Things. As you know that the Internet of Things is when we had a computer revolution started, the computers operated by the human beings, and then it was got connected to the wires or networks. Then people get connected through systems. Now we are talking about systems are getting connected with each other without human intervention. The Internet of Things is a system of interrelated computing devices, mechanical and digital machines provided with unique identifiers and the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human to human or human to computer interactions. So how the data is getting captured is through the sensors and devices. We can capture the data, and through the connectivity it goes to the data processing and it input to the another device. How it works is, for example, some of the home appliance companies already started this Internet of Things. Just before you start in your office, you can switch on your washing machine, you can switch on your home AC. Something like that is already available in the market, and it is going to be a interesting thing what we want to utilize it. So it become a autonomous or automated kind of things. No need to worry about that. The IoT solutions are becoming more economical nowadays. For example, people sitting in Chennai can operate their own agriculture motors or the domestic appliances which is available in Bangalore or any other city. So that's how this Internet of Things are happening. In the industrial environment, how it operates is when we have a computer controlled machines, CNC machines or robots, if you connect the robots and the CNC machines together, that will operate on its own. The sequence of operation, everything is getting connected through the Internet of Things. So if you, it may look like a too costly affair, But in India, a lot of solution providers are available for Internet of Things. And if you have a digitalization, you can just pull the data from the system. And if you are having any data available, we can capture through the sensors, then we can connect it, and then we can process it. Even the IoT works on the cloud computing platform. So the next one big element of this Industry 4.0 is 3D printing. So a 3D printing process builds three-dimensional object from a computer-aided design model, usually by successive adding material layer by layer, or it is also called as additive manufacturing. For example, in this photo, we talk about the Eiffel Tower getting printed. So we always deal with the 2D drawing in the past. Now we have a 3D model available with our digitalization. What we have now, we can print whatever the size we want, and we can do that. The 3D printing application has two elements. One is when we want to develop a complex product, for example, a rocket or a boiler or a big vehicle, we can just print and see how it will look like with a scale of 1:100 or 1000 or whatever the scale you want. It is just to downsize and print and see that. So what is the advantage is when we have a 3D printed model available for our product, we can go and do the marketing with the customers without making the product. That means my prototype, how it look like, can be marketed to the market. That is a one advantage. Another advantage in the 3D printing is when I have a robot system in my company, in my factory, if some small portion has broken, a bolt has broken in the robot and I can't replace it, it's not available immediately. I can just feed the 3D model into the system and then get printed that bolt or nut, whatever required, intricate structures, what is required, with accuracy, what is required. So I can manage the crisis in the shop floor. I can market the product with the help of 3D printing. And this also become a low cost, affordable pricing available in the Indian market. And even less than 10,000 rupees, the 3D printers are available. Only based on the accuracy or the finish what we want, it become too costly or whatever the price range it is available. It is essentially used for the low production, and it is essentially used for the new products. It is essentially used for some experimentation. In any product development, in a mass production environment, they always make a prototype and they will make a samples of few parts, then they will test it and then they will productionize. So to do that initial prototyping and concept, converting a picture into a product, we can use the 3D printing here. So when we talk about the digitalization, visualization, and connecting with systems all together, it becomes one of the critical elements is this data security. The technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect networks, devices, programs, and data from attack, damage, or unauthorized access. So that is going to become a biggest challenge. That's where we have application security, network security, cloud security, Internet of Things security. All these fields has multiple layers of learning available, and it is keep evolving, because when the data is freely available and people have accessibility to the data, the first thing what they do is, what's in it for me? How can I utilize that freely available data or something like that? How we do a search in the computer or the Google, people will start taking the data and they use their own intellectual for a different purpose, and the data goes to a wrong person means, and we will be in trouble, and the entire nation will be in trouble, and the globe will be in trouble. So that's where all this virus or the security attacks attach. So a lot of companies employ the people exclusively for the cyber security, because you can't live without connecting the systems. You can't live with the global data. So we have no choice. We have to live with the global connectivity. When we live with the global connectivity, security is going to be a challenge. So it is getting evolved as one of the best field for the future learnings. The next element in the Industry 4.0 is autonomous robots. If you see the evolution of the robots in the industry, it started with the mechanical arms. Wherever the hazardous process happening, like a heat treatment or any furnace type of work, we use the mechanical arm and robo, and that will go and pick without getting injured or without having any damage to human beings. That's how it started with robots. Then we, in some situation, it may not be possible to pick through the mechanical arm. Then we started using a sensor-enabled robots. It will sense, then it will create an alert or it will do something. That's what the sensor-enabled robots. Now we have autonomous robots. An autonomous robot is a robot that performs behaviors or tasks with a high degree of autonomous subfield of artificial intelligence. So it is one of the subfield of the artificial intelligence. It will replace the human beings in a mass production environment or in a broader aspects. So this is how this getting evolved. When you have autonomous robots in place for the manufacturing or any industrial field, we can connect that robots together through a network. Then it will become Internet of Things. Then it will simplify the job. It will become a more safest job. You people may be aware that during the pandemic, some of the hospital industry has used the robots for the treatment of the COVID patient. Even you've seen some of the WhatsApp messages where the robots has been used for sanitizing the retail customers in some of the retail shops. So that become a day of life, the autonomous robots. So the next element of Industry 4.0 is a simulation. A simulation is an approximate imitation of the operation of the process or system that represents its operation over time. Analytical simulation and virtual simulation. So if you see a factory under construction, or if you are planning to do some construction, a big factory, we always deal with the 2D drawing, blueprint drawing, and we'll try to identify where, which machine, all those things. But we don't have an opportunity to interact or see how the crane movement will affect a person walking on that aids, something like that. So the virtual factory operation before construction can be simulated with a big size. It can be 100-acre size of the factory, or anything can be simulated. Now it become a basic mandatory requirement before starting a construction. The planning approval itself, the simulation become a need of the hour. So a lot of waste, a lot of money is getting saved through the simulation. So the analytical simulation, we use it for the any new innovation or something like that. The virtual simulation is getting used for the any construction or any other problem solving, something like that. We are using it. For example, in any vehicle, a car, how to do the crash test. Before producing the car, we can simulate the crash test, and then we can see the impact load or the fatigue failure, all those things in the simulation. A lot of application softwares are available for simulation. That's going to be and according to the application, whether it is automobile or defense or the process industry, we can use the suitable application along with the drawing software or the 3D modeling software. So these are the 9 elements what we are talking about in the Industry 4.0. So it started more than 10 years ago in German, and then it is getting spread to the entire globe as a revolution, fourth revolution of the industry. So that has created a lot of excitement and sometimes a lot of fear also. So one of the question what the people ask is, what will happen if every company start implementing Industry 4.0, whether we will be losing the job? That's what the biggest question. So there were debates in the various forum or something like that. So there is a solution what was arrived. The Industry 4.0 It's a digital transformation. It gives a lot of expertise and solutions for the age-old problems, but at the same time, it gives a threat for the human living who is depending upon the manual operation. That to country like India, the human capital is more. That means we have more people to seeking for job, but how to do that? So that become a debate, and also completely transforming to the industry 4.0 for each and every industry is not practically feasible with the amount of money required, investment required, also not possible with all the levels of companies. Because if you see the Indian economy or the industry scenario, more than around 50% of the industries are medium small scale industries which serve the bigger companies. So they can't afford to have all the technology, everything together. So this debate is going on for the last 5+ years in the industry, and selectively few people are using it. And also there was a challenge discussed across the globe. Even in 2017, and there was a conference in Japan, and the Japanese Prime Minister talked about Society 5.0 as a topic, where he talked about how to utilize the Industry 4.0 technology with human without sacrificing our service mind or the humanity. That's what he raised the question. Then that became a new revolution called Industry 5.0. That's what we are going to talk about. So the Industry 5.0 is nothing but mass customization and cyber physical cognitive systems. So there is no compromise on the cyber physical system. We are not going to get it up with that, but we are going to live with that. But how to utilize it without compromising on human element? Because we can't ignore the human intelligence. What has happened is, if I put the 20 different robots in the production environment, if something goes wrong with the input, what I give it to the robot, or the material what it is handling, it will completely stop. If you go and see in any industrial situation or any conditions, all the robots has been guarded with a very rugged guards or the fencing, because human can't enter when the robot is in operation. That's how it has been protected. So that is not the way to deal with moving forward, because we have to utilize our own human intelligence. That's what the thought process behind this Industry 5.0. It was evolved just 3-4 years back, 2017. That's what evolved, and it is a new insight, and people has to work on that. So what is the unique feature of Industry 5.0 is technology should be embraced by the society as an aid rather than a threat. That's what the biggest motto. And when we utilize the technology with the human brain, which is a natural intelligence, we become a super genius society. So we'll get both technology advantage as well as human intelligence advantage. That's what the second concept. So what these two thought process put together, people started developing collaborative robots. What is that meaning of collaborative robots? They briefly name this as a cobot, COBOTS, cobots. So collaborative robots, we can work along with the robots. That means robot will do what we say or what we ask them to do. For example, certain critical job alone, we can handle the robot in our hand and say this particular small hole drilling or something like that. I can't do it, so I can ask the robot to program and do it on its own. So people can work along with the robot. We no need to put the robots in the gauge or in the separation in the grill, so we can work along with that. So it become a popular now. For example, whatever the I talked about the robo in the retail shop where it is giving a sanitizer. It's also a part of the collaborative robots. So no need to get threatened by the robots. We can work friendly with the robots. That's what the collaborative robots what we are talking about. So efficiency versus productivity. The robots has given an excellent productivity, no doubt on that. Whether the human efficiency is utilized, because that's a big challenge. When we automate the entire industry, it is continuous running means no problem. But if you see the business condition, it is fluctuating. For example, last 4 months, the entire globe, industrial globe, is at the standstill. People are not making much production. What to do with that robots? So there is a fluctuation. So the efficiency is reduced. The 4 months, all robots shut down, all the automated lines are shut down means it's a huge loss. So then we have to have a trade-off between the efficiency and the productivity. So that's what the objective of the Industry 5.0, leveraging technology with the creativity. And it is going to create a high value jobs for all the future generation who are aspiring to become a industry employee or become a research employee or who are the things. Because it is going to uh, evolve as a new field, how to utilize the robot programming at the same time human mind programming, what we have to do together. That's what going to happen. So this is a new field what is evolved in the last few years, and it is picking up a lot of debates and discussion happening across the globe in various forums. So what is the difference between Industry 4.0 and 5.0 in a high level approach? So in Industry 4.0, we focused on the connecting machines. In Industry 5.0, we are focusing on the delivering customer experience. And in Industry 4.0, mass customization, it is hyper customization, intelligent supply system, and responsive distributed supply system. Smart products is the Industry 4.0, and experience activated products. So the thing is, it will be an interactive. We can interact with the robots or the computer system, whatever we do, that it will give a new experience. And manpower distanced from the factories, return of manpower to factories. So we are not going to lose a job. We are going to do a smart work with the smart machines, smart systems, and sitting in a desk and holding in our own hands. We are going to operate the entire globe. That's how it going to work. That is called Industry 5.0. So it is needs a customization. Every industry will come out with a solution, come out with the ideas. There will be a lot of pattern, all those research, everything design process, everything is going to be evolved. It is going to be a big challenge as well as learning opportunity for everyone. So industry revolution impacting all branches of engineering. That is a takeaway what I want to insist on that. It looks like it is electronics, it is a computer, but other field branch can keep quiet. That is not the case because it is going to impact, it is impacting, already impacting every branch of engineering. If you take a mechanical engineer working in a production factory, he can't continue in the job without knowing Internet of Things, which is required for the CNC machines. He can't continue in the job without knowing robot programming, also Internet of Things and cloud computing, what is required to make a welding in a steel. So knowing the welding is not adequate. Knowing the robot programming to do the welding is required. So this is how it looks like. Every field is getting impacted because of the industry revolution. You can see in the during the pandemic situation, people utilize the digital platform more effectively than personal meetings. So it is impacting all branches of engineering. Whatever the branch you are studying, you should be aware of that industry revolution, what is going to change. What I need to do as a student, knowing the theory, this type of awareness session helping you to learn the theory, and conceptual learning, that is more important, and application oriented learning where it can be applied. For example, WhatsApp is a common chatting tool or the networking tool, but how many of us know that how the WhatsApp is used as a marketing tool, digital marketing tool? I heard from some of the economical professors how this WhatsApp, the smartphone, has transformed the people who live in the coastal area of Kerala, who use the WhatsApp more effectively for fish marketing. So a lot of things are happening. So we have to learn the application oriented learning. And there is a change in the learning is happening across the globe. We learned science and maths in the school, and in our days we learned individual branch of engineering. Even now, some of the universities campuses having individual branch of engineering. But the moving forward, it is going to become a integration of engineering branches. That's what our new education policy or the system announced also talk about that. It is going to be a mix of all the engineering branches because everyone wants a solution. The solution is not available with one branch, it's available at multiple branches together. For example, I want a best building. I can't live with only mechanical. I have to depend upon the robot. And to make that robo work, I have to work on the PLCs or the electronic system. To make that happen, I have to develop my people. In the HR field, the talent development, everything is going to change. So this is going to be an integrated engineering. Engineering learning will become an integrated approach, not an individual approach. So that is what the change in the learning going to happen. The new norm for learning or growing in the industry is innovation matters, not the experience. If somebody say I have 20 years experience in the mechanical production shop, it is not going to be valued. Are you innovating for the future? What you learned so far does not matter. What you are going to innovate for the future, that is going to be critical for any growth. That's why a lot of companies engage the young CEOs and they make an innovation. If you see any smartphone manufacturer, they all have a young and energetic, innovative, and a lot of startups has succeeded because of this change in the new norm. So another aspect is agility in learning. Every day technology is changing. Every day expectations are changing. Every day new things are coming up. So we have to agile in our learning. We can't wait for 4 years course to know everything. In fact, that what we expect in the industries when a fresh graduate coming out of the college should become usable, ready to work in our production shop, in our design centers within a month, something like that. So then it needs more speed in the learning. And all the physical systems are becoming a digital now. Without knowing a digital platform, we can't learn. For example, this session is happening on a digital. If people, those who are living in a rural or somewhere, who can't understand how to get connected through digital, they are missing an opportunity. So that's where connectivity across the globe is more critical, and knowing the digital solution is more critical. And new business model and new jobs. Because one of the apprehension raised in various forums is whether we will be losing the job. No, we are going to get more jobs, but in a very smart jobs. It is not a dirty job what our grandfathers did in the past. It is going to be a smart job. There are new jobs getting evolved, so the new business model is coming up. So there is a bright future for India as well as for the entire world. And the people, those who are in the young age, who are in the college, who is going to become a future industry leaders, have the bright future. So that is going to be a more smarter and smarter. So only thing is just prepare yourself for the challenges or the opportunities what is coming up in the forefront. Just want to end this session with our great dreamer, a great leader of this country, Dr. Abdul Kalam quote. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. A person who dreamed for the superpower status for India, we are slowly moving on to that. I hope that all the young generation who will fulfill his dream and make it as a reality very soon. So with that, I will end up my presentation. If you have any questions, queries, we can answer.
There are a few questions in the question answer box. Can you read it, sir?
Yeah. There is a one question called, could you explain what exactly industrial engineers do? So industrial engineers are basically a process designers. That's what the job role what we are talking about. For example, I talked about the making a layout and ensuring that the factory is in a perfect shape before become a construction. So those things also they exactly design the factory. That's what the industrial engineer's job. They will put the layout, they will arrive the time required to do a job, they will arrive what are the how many number of people required to produce this much, all those things. So industrial engineers are nothing but a process designers. We say design engineers for product, these people are industry designers. So they do the time study, they identify the efficiency improvement, they create a layout, they will keep improving the process. That's what the industrial engineer's job. But the industrial engineer job also needs a little bit uh, advanced technology like a virtual validation, everything is required. So the next question what was asked is, as the industry version gets upgraded, there is gradual decrease in employability. Could you share some thoughts on this? I think I already answered that question. That was the industry 5.0 talks about how to protect the jobs, how to protect the human intelligence without compromising on the advantages of technology. So it is not going to be an employability issue. Employability issue will continue if people are not getting upgraded their skills. That is already there. We have a shortage for manpower for our basic welding, assembly, machining processes because we don't have a skilled workforce. So the employability responsibilities, the individuals, or and some extent the institutions. The institutions make the employable engineers. That's what we are expecting. So the technology upgradation means our academic upgradation also required. So that's what I can share as my thought about the employability. And the next question is, could you tell some courses which we can learn for working in industry as engineers for the current trend? There is no single course it will solve all these problems, or yes, there is no single course which will mitigate or the serve all the industries. Every industry is having their own specific. My humble suggestion is, please choose your field of interest, whatever the course you are doing. Whether you want to go for the design type of job, development type of job, or marketing type of job, or production, or what is the job you want, which field you are more interested within your branch of engineering, then you choose the course. Otherwise, it is going to become a you know everything, but nothing will help you to get the job. So don't try to learn everything. Be a focus and application oriented learning. That's what I suggest you to do that. So the next question talks about what is the scope of automation startups in current situation and in future, and how to go for automation startup. So if I ask me, the automation startup was doing very good job. And I always talk about two things. People will embrace the technology in any field only for two conditions. One is on the affordability and availability. Only because of the startups in the automation or the cloud computing, the technology is available across India. Since it is all startup, there is no huge cost. They are able to give it a cheaper price. So I have a lot of examples on the startup who do an excellent job in the Internet of Things. The companies are not depending on big companies, big service providers, but they are depending on startups. So very good future available for startups. That's what I can say as answer for that. Next question is, what kind of skill have more scope in our upcoming industry? There is no specific skill. That's what I talk about. You decide where you want to become after 20 years or 30 years. What is your personal aspiration? I want to become a scientist, like people who work in DRDO or nuclear, select and go and do whatever required. I want to become an administrator, go and do that. There is no such a things. Somebody is interested in the project management to go become project manager. So dream for yourself on your career and then choose the path and do that. Every field is excellent field. There is no such a bias or difference in that. It's only thing is you have to go for the digital solutions or aware of the trend in the industry. For example, if you want to become a marketing person, you can talk about the digital marketing as a learning opportunity. So there is no single solution, and it's also not possible for everyone to have every skills. For example, somebody is more interested only to do the production job, chasing people and getting things done in the shop floor, production environment. I can't put that person into a design office to drawing, 3D modeling, simulation, everything. So identify your own natural fit, your own competency, and you can have some mentor from industry or the education institution, and then work on that plan. So don't come out of the college without plan. Don't continue a study without plan of the career. So the next question talks about, sir, by implementing the industry 4.0, there will be unemployment. I think I already answered that question. So it is going to create a smart jobs, not no jobs situation. It is going to be a great smart work across the globe. So is there any other questions?
I think that's all, sir. You have answered all the questions.
Okay.
So thank you very much,
Okay.
Anbucherian sir, for your wonderful talk. I think there was
Yeah.
okay.
Thank
There
you.
is one question that has come up just now. If you are able to
Yeah.
give ideas only, there is an opportunity. I don't know what is the meaning of that. Somebody has just sent one question. If we are able to give ideas only, there is an opportunity. I don't know what is whether that's a question or not.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir. So thank you very much
Yeah.
for the talk. So I thank all the attendees and participants
I
and
don't know what is that. Yeah. Just generally. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Please carry on, sir. Okay. So thank you very much. So tomorrow evening we'll meet again at 5 o'clock. The tomorrow's session will be conducted on Webinar Jam, and all the links will be sent to all the participants. So I thank all the students who have joined in, and we will meet again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.